the master of the good name, founder of a mystical movement in the mid-19th century, stopped singing. But he would never stop in the middle of the song. He just stopped, and he began to laugh. And he began to laugh uproariously and outrageously. And there were those who thought that the master of the good name was, already a little bit. And then he for 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, he just laughed. Stopped laughing. And he picked up the Kiddush cup, and he began to make the Kiddush. In the middle of the Kiddush, and this is recorded in a book called Ohev Yisrael, the book of the unmediated lover, written by Shabtai Rappaport. In the very beginning of the book, it's recorded in the Yiddish, this exact story, transmitted in oral tradition and then in written tradition. He stops the Kiddush, and he begins, and this time it's kind of like Nietzsche's insane laughter. He's just laughing. Right? And you're not allowed to stop in the middle of the Kiddush. That's just kind of against the law. He just laughs and laughs and laughs, and then he stops laughing, and he continues. And the people join with him. Then he stops again, puts it down, picks up the challah rolls, right? He starts making the hamotzi, and he says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lecha min haaretz. Everyone says, Amen, Amen. And then he starts laughing again, right? For 20, 30, 45 minutes this time. And the Hasidim are just outraged. He's just broken all the rules. I mean, for Lyman, there's a limit to everything. I mean, this man is, he is the revered master. You think I'm crazy. He was crazy. I mean, older me, I'm crazy. Right? And so the Hasidim, a few of them walk out, and they're furious. The Sabbath ends, 24 hours later, and he says, the Baal Shem Tov says, get Alexei. And Alexei was his wagon driver. And his wagon driver always sat with his eyes facing the Baal Shem Tov, the master, never the horses, because the horses always knew where to go. And he says to the horses, travel. And they travel in what's called in mysticism, kvitzat derech. They skip over place, they skip over time, and they somehow go into the mist, and they transpose, and they move, and they go under, and somehow, who knows what time has gone by, and they wind up in a small little hamlet at the outer edges of Galicia, right, in Europe. And the town is kind of lit, and it's kind of late at night, and they don't go through any of the lit places. They pass all the beautiful houses until they get to the outer edge of the town. There's almost a shack that's about to fall. And the Baal Shem Tov says, knock on that door. Knock on that door. The Hasidim, there's about 7 of them in the wagon with the Baal Shem Tov. They get out, they knock at the door, and it's the house of Shabtai, the bookbinder. They knock at the door. He sees these 7 Hasidic, young people, older people. He sees the Baal Shem Tov. He almost faints. The Baal Shem Tov says, I want to come in, and you need to tell my disciples what happened here last night. He says, I'm really sorry. I don't know how you knew, and I apologize, and I am completely remorseful, and I know I stopped in the middle. And he says, no, just tell us what happened. So this is what happened. You see, books actually weren't doing that well. It was pre-internet, but still, they weren't doing that well. In that particular town of, Kushnitz. Kushnitz was the name of the town, where Shabtai the bookbinder actually lived. And so at the end of that week, he had finally come really to the end of all funds. And he just had nothing left. He had eked by, weeks and months before, but it was Sabbath Eve when you have these 2 beautiful challahs, and you have this gorgeous wine and this gorgeous goblet, and you have the whole repast, right, which is outside, and there was just no food. And to be in a kind of household where there's no candle, there's no light, but he was a proud man, Shabtai. So he says to his wife, don't dare to borrow money from any of the neighbors. Right? I've never borrowed money in my life. You're that kind of masculine. I've never borrowed money in my life. Right? And we'll sit quietly. We're at the end of town. No one will notice. I'll walk home from synagogue myself. Make sure no one walks with me. We won't have food, but we won't violate our pride. Okay. So Fegela, right, which is the name of his wife, right, is sitting there doing what people do, and there's nothing else left to do, and she's just kind of aimlessly cleaning. Aimlessly cleaning as he's gone off to synagogue early at 2 in the afternoon just because he doesn't want to be in a house. He's so depressed. And she comes across at the back of a closet a drawer she's forgotten. And in this drawer she's forgotten, she takes out the tunic, right, the tunic that he wore on their wedding day. And she takes out, right, the shawl that she wore, the white, beautiful shawl, and there was the dress. And I got to tell you, for the 10, 15 years before this, right, Shabtai and Feigle weren't doing that well. Divorce wasn't big in Koschwitz, but if it was, believe me, right, they just weren't doing well. It was hard. They weren't quite sure why they were together. They didn't have these beautiful intimate talks. They didn't quite like each other so much anymore, and they didn't quite remember what did they see in each other. What was it that they saw? And they just really had forgotten. But there's no food left, and she sees the tunic that he wore, and it has 7 gold buttons. And just without thinking, she cuts off the gold buttons, and she goes to the market. She trades in the gold buttons, and she buys, I mean, the most incredible repast you can imagine, the most beautiful challah, as beautiful as this, and the most beautiful wine, and the most beautiful food, and the gorgeous candles. Right? And as Shabtai is walking home, he walks in, and as he sees his house lit up, he gets angrier and angrier and angrier because he knows his wife must have borrowed money, right? And embarrassed him in front of the entire town. And he walks in, and he sees his wife, and he's furious. He's furious. And as he's about to start screaming, he looks at her. She's in her wedding dress. She's in her wedding dress, and he sees the tunic. Right? He sees the tunic, and she says, has different buttons, says, put it on. And they start singing together the Shabbos Nigun. They hadn't sung for so long. And he takes her, and they begin to dance. And they just dance, and they're so happy. They just start laughing. They just start laughing and laughing and laughing. And they finish the first dance, and they go to make Kiddush. And they just couldn't contain it. And they just start laughing again. And the laughter was so strong that literally the angels in heaven heard the laughter. And they began to laugh. And then God notices that the angels aren't singing anymore. He wonders why. And so God too begins to laugh. And then they make the Kiddush, and again they laugh. And the Baal Shem Tov says, all the celestial angels, the divine herself is laughing. How could I not laugh with them? How could I not laugh with them? And Shabtai, right, and Feigle, and that evening make love. And they conceive, right? The master was the greatest master of love, called Israel of Koschwitz, the master of love. I wrote a book called The Lover of the Unmediated Path to the Divine. And in the beginning of his book of teaching, this story is told. So a blessing to all of us, that we're able somehow to see ourselves, to see each other with God's eyes, in ways perhaps that we haven't seen ourselves or each other for so many years. The untransformed wounds somehow over this time that we all have, somehow dissolve, somehow find their way. Even as we afflict the comfortable, right, the afflictions are comforted. They find a deep place of repose. We're able to see the gorgeous beauty in who we actually are. Because love is, and we'll talk about it so much more tomorrow, love is ultimately not an emotion. Love is a perception. It's to be able to see. To be a lover is to have eyes that see. To be a lover is to see with God's eyes. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feed the person next to you, and then they take a piece, and they feed the person next to them. Or just, just pass around pieces, and just feed the person next to you. Here we go. Perfect. Remember your mother told you not to throw food? This is your chance to rebel. Oh my God, this is so great. Here we go. But feed the person, take a piece and feed the person next to you.
I love that you prepared that.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's
That's incredible.
It's stunning.
It's stunning.
Gregor, can we get all over there?
Thank you.
Aaron? There we go. Pearl, okay?
Nice and sweet.
Liz. Back there, everyone has? Everyone has? Oh my God, this is beautiful. Oh my God. The taste of the Garden of Eden.
None of you listen.
Wow.
That's right, second time.
What did I eat?
I said as we were leaving, I said,